So, Liana K made a video about her views on the honey badgers being kicked out of Calax, and in it, she said that Men's Rights Edmonton had been awful and abusive to her, and that we had turned her friends into really nasty people.
I hear that somebody involved in this is connected to this organization that's been awful to me, and I believe abusive, and I believe turned my friends into really nasty people who chose this organization over real human beings just because of an ideological difference.
She also said that we got up in her face and told her that she needed to take abuse for her own good.
But, you know, if anybody gets up in my face and starts saying you need to take abuse for your own good, no, then we're done. And that's where it got with these people associated with the Edmonton's Men's Rights Organization, or Association, or whatever the heck it's called.
Now, I found all of this very strange because I'm sort of the main guy here at Men's Rights Edmonton, and I had no recollection of ever so much as speaking of Liana K, let alone warping her friend's fragile little minds and telling her to take my abuse. So I made a video about what she said. She wasn't very pleased that I had done so without first contacting her, as you can see here. Now, we haven't done any of the things she's accused us of, so I asked her to apologize for lying. You'll notice that she says that she did apologize to me. Actually, what she gave me were various unpologies. An unpology is the facade of an apology created by uttering obligatory words of remorse devoid of actual regret, contrition, or even admission of guilt. There was never any intent on her part to speak about the entire group, then why did she say that this organization has been awful and abusive to her? Saying, sorry it upset you, or sorry you feel that way, is the quintessential unpology. She's not apologizing for anything she said, she's apologizing for the way I feel about what she said. That's not an apology, that's an insult. Sorry for the lack of clarity? There was no lack of clarity. Liana quite clearly stated that this organization has been awful to her and abusive, and that we had turned her friends into nasty people. Men's Rights Edmonton had no involvement with Liana K whatsoever before I tweeted her about the comments she had made about us in the initial video. Now, Liana staunchly denies having lied about Men's Rights Edmonton, and one of her big defenses is that she was just stating a bias. If you watch the original video, you'll see that the bias she was referring to was her bias towards the Expogate thing because Men's Rights Edmonton was involved, and she had this bias because we had been so horrible to her. Since we haven't been horrible to her, that shit ain't gonna fly. So she scales it back even further. Now she was saying that some people in a group did bad things, even though she didn't make that qualifier when she was saying that this organization has been abusive to her. And just who is some people? Well, it's one guy, Nephanor. He's listed on the members page of our website, and he occasionally contributes videos to our blog. I spoke with him about this, and he was once a friendly acquaintance of Liana, and they did have a bit of a spat. In fact, Nephanor made a YouTube video about his thoughts on the feminists in Gamergate, specifically Liana. Now, I want you to brace yourself for the awful, abusive treatment he heaps on this poor woman.
Let's get underway. But before I get going, I would like to say something personal to Liana. You said recently that you are being attacked by Gamergate because you wrote on Polygon. But we all know that isn't true. We all know there is more to it than that. You have admitted that you helped fund Depression Quest. This in itself is not a reason to damn you, and I don't hold it against you, and neither does anyone else. Honestly, helping to support games is a good thing. It's what happened after, so let's go through that. On August 28th, the day numerous websites declared that gamers were dead, or that gamers shouldn't be your audience, you began talking with Ben Kuchera about writing for Polygon. This was after claiming you had no idea this whole Gamergate thing was about. On September 2nd, you claimed to have heard about it for the first time and said, "Destiny cannot come out soon enough. Between that and Sims 4, everyone will be too busy playing to fight about dumb shit online." On the 3rd, you claimed to have not heard about it again, and said, "Holy shit, I just found out about hashtag Gamergate because I was too busy working my ass off on articles about gaming. Hashtag irony." Followed by, "Spent the last hour reviewing hashtag Gamergate. My takeaway is that the internet doesn't want me ever making a fair wage to write about games." The next day you said, "Instead of just pointing out problems, hashtag not your shield and hashtag Gamergate, let's reward companies who are taking steps in the right direction." Followed by, "To those dudes claiming that hashtag Gamergate is forcing out female voices, you do realize you're speaking for us instead of hiring us, right?" The day after that. Soon after that, when you had many people bring up what GG was really about, you tried talking about splitting the hashtag, a tactic used by dun-dun-dun, Anti-Gamergate. You remember, gamer ethics? You also attacked prominent Gamergate folks at the time and labeled the whole movement by those individuals which you had personal issues with. You were talking about how we had poisoned the well. That's just the tip of your personal iceberg, Liana, so please, don't act like you are some kind of innocent victim who never did anything wrong. Despite all that, I am not going to tell you to get out of talking about this, as I have no right to. Not only that, I believe you have many valid points which are worthy of consideration. Apparently, Ubisoft does as well, and they agree with you. But you can't be shocked or offended that because of your own actions, some Gamergate folks are less than enthusiastic about your participation. You have given many of them good reason to take what you say with a grain of salt, especially with your conduct in many live streams that you were a part of. You take many prominent pro-Gamergate folks with a grain of salt, so why should we just listen and believe you? It works both ways.
I'll put a link to the whole video in the low bar for anyone who wants to listen to it, but as you can tell, that video was perfectly civil. However, that doesn't prove that Nephanor didn't abuse her elsewhere. Does Liana have any proof to back up her accusations?
Now already, I've given people tons of ammunition to grandstand and try to refute this and try to claim you have no proof. You're right. I have zero proof.
No, she doesn't have any proof, and anyone trying to refute this is just grandstanding. Now, that is quite the statement, considering this tweet she made on May 7th. So, to sum it up, Liana K said that this organization has been abusive towards her, when in fact only one guy in Men's Rights Edmonton had ever even spoken with her, and there is absolutely no evidence to suggest that he had been abusive to her, and in fact evidence that he had been quite civil towards her. The claim that we had turned her friends into nasty people is insane, yet she remains quite resolute that she hasn't said or done anything wrong, despite the fact that by her own standards, talking shit about people without ponying up any proof makes someone, quote, part of the problem. She has described my behavior towards her as an attack when all I did was ask for an apology for lying about Men's Rights Edmonton. I'm not trying to get an apology anymore, because I know that feminists never ever apologize for their misbehavior. What I do want is for our side of the story to be heard as widely as possible, because Liana's mischaracterization of us has been seen by about 12,000 people, and I'll count myself lucky if my correction of her very feminist version of the truth reaches even half of that. So if you're tired of seeing media personalities cry harassment and abuse every time someone disagrees with them or calls them on their bullshit, please help me by sharing this video on whatever social media you prefer, but especially on Twitter, along with the Gamergate hashtag. I'm Nick Redding with mensrightsedmonton.com.